Back to My Garden, episode 45.
Welcome to Back to My Garden. Discover your passion for gardening. Here's Dave Ledoux.
Are you concerned about toxic chemicals, GMOs, and frankenfood? Don't panic. Grow organic. Discover my new free resource for organic gardening. Go to www.backtomygarden.com/myorganic. Do you love homegrown tomatoes? Free report reveals the 5 dirt cheap tools I use to grow 22 types of heirloom tomatoes, including my secret soil booster. Download your copy for free today at www.backtomygarden.com/free report. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you listen to this. I'm Dave Ledoux. Welcome to a special edition of Back to My Garden, and today our guest is joining us from kind of in the middle of the map, if you think about it, close to Nashville, Tennessee. Cindy is known as the Cracked Pot Gardener from Franklin, Tennessee, where the weather is fickle and the soil needs constant amendments. These challenges make gardening a true passion and a constant learning experience. Cindy is a specialist on herbs. Yay, going to be good talking about that. And she's also a master gardener. Please welcome to the show, Cindy Shapton. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on the show today. And I gave you a brief introduction. I want to get to know you, and our listeners want to hear a little bit about your story. Why don't you take a minute or two, talk to us a little bit about your background and how you got into gardening?
Well, Dave, believe it or not, I was raised on a farm in northern Michigan. And so gardening is just part of my heritage, so to speak. We grew up raising a garden. And then I went to college in horticulture and then had a garden when we were first married. My husband and I got married in 1978, and we had a garden then. And I've just kind of taken that whole gardening thing with me wherever we move too. So I've always loved gardening, and I've always done gardening wherever we lived. It's changed based on where we are. And then over the years, of course, I've changed what I love to garden with, but it's always been there.
Fantastic. So we've got a lot to explore, and thank you for starting us off, Cindy. Now, if you're driving your car listening to me and Cindy talk, don't take notes. Drive safe. I'm going to put all the links to Cindy's resources and social media on the blog at backtomygarden.com. You're going to definitely want to check out Cindy's blog at www.cindyshapton.com. That's CINDYSHAPTON. Very active on Twitter. Cindy's got a dynamic Twitter following. That's at Crackpot Gardener, but it's spelled the Canadian way. It's CRACKPOTGARDNER. Did I get that right, Cindy?
Well, actually, it's just no E's.
There's no E. Yeah, that's the easy way to remember it.
Yes, just no E's. Yes. Yeah, they ran out of space for my Twitter. They only let you have so many.
How rude. Twitter, come on.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But it's okay. People find me anyway, so it's all good.
You've also got a brilliant book about herbs. We got to explore that. And let's start off with the title you have as the Cracked Pot Gardener. How did that come about?
Well, actually, I guess you really don't know me, but some people would say I'm kind of a cracked pot. And then, actually, we used to have an herb farm called Hyssop Hill in downtown Franklin, and we had 3 1/3 acres on an old 1820s homestead. And we had, a garden shop, tea room, things like that. In the garden shop, we had nicknamed it the Cracked Pot Herb Shop. And then after our children grew up and we moved on from there, I started writing a column for a local paper, and we called it the Cracked Pot Gardener.
Lovely.
So that's kind of where that all evolved from.
You've got such a long track record in this industry, and you mentioned change. Take us back to when you were just getting started as an adult. Because now as an expert master gardener, that's one thing, but a lot of listeners are brand new and have very small tiny gardens, some of them in cities with container gardens. What was your first garden like as an adult, Cindy?
Well, one of the most memorable first gardens I had was when we were first and Michigan, and we had several acres. And one day I asked my brother to come, and I decided I would plant herbs. That was my first foray into herb gardening, and I really didn't know anything about it except I wanted to do this. I wanted to grow herbs. I loved cooking with herbs, and so I thought, well, this is the way you learn. You just go and do it. So I bought a bunch of seeds. I planted rows and rows of herbs. And then in the fall, I harvested them, dried them, put them in big bags. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all these herbs? So I ended up, putting big plastic gallon-sized bags of herbs together, and I would tie a little bow for Christmas for my younger siblings. And I would give them like big bags of mint or oregano or whatever. And so that kind of got to be kind of a joke about maybe I overdo things just a little bit. And so I think what I learned from all that was the fact that you don't have to have a whole lot of space to grow herbs, especially. You can do very, very well in a container or just a small plot of land. That's the nice thing about herbs. You don't have to have, an acre of them to enjoy them and use them.
So you literally jumped in with both feet and were very ambitious from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's how I roll. You ask my husband, yeah, it's all or nothing, and go big or go home. So sometimes that gets me into trouble with gardening because I tend to get a little overzealous with my gardening, and in fact, that's how it turned into a business. It was either I was going to have to I had to figure out something to do as I was grow. That's kind of how a business kind of came from. That is, I had all this excess and started sharing.
You said a 4-letter word, and we're going to leave it in because MINT is not technically a swear word, but around our place we have very invasive mint. Do you have a love affair with mint? Are you afraid of it? What are your feelings on mint?
Well, I think Mint's a wily character. You gotta know what you're dealing with, and Mint's aggressive, and is opportunist. Mint's an opportunist. If he sees a space, he's going to take it. So you've just got to try and outsmart it. So I always tell people to either plant it somewhere where you don't mind if it runs into the yard, where you can just mow it, or put it in a container. Even if you sink the container into the ground, and even if it starts to get away, you can always corral it that way. You can foil the plants by having it in a container because you can see it when it starts to roam. And also you have to be careful because mints will cross. So, if you like mint and you grow many varieties of mint, you're going to have to keep them separated. There's a lot of things going on out there in the garden, a lot of hanky-panky, so you got to be careful with that.
Where were you a year and a half ago when I desperately needed your help? I had a 2x2 raised bed about 10 inches tall, and the mint leapt, skydived from that bed to another bed, into my neighbor's lawn, into my lawn. I finally lifted up the box this spring, and the 2x2 by 10 inches high was root bound with mint, a solid block. And I had to carry about this 80-pound thing. And my wife says, no, you can't leave it there. That thing is going to, and I got the lecture.
It became a monster.
Yeah,
yes, you have to keep your eye on it. And you have to try to, and it's not easy, but you have to try to outsmart it. I used to have people that would come to my herb farm and they'd say, I killed my mint. And I'd say, we have a group that meets, Mint Killers Anonymous. And I said, you might be lonely because you're the only one in it. But, in other words, it's very, very difficult to, once you have it. You have to have a plan before you plant it.
But tremendous benefits. It smells so good. It's teas, a lot of applications. It's a really wonderful Aggressive, you said it. Mint
Yeah.
Killers Anonymous. That's great.
Yeah. Well, you can. There are, if you know what a plant, if you know what a plant is going to do when you plant it, you can use it to your advantage. Like, for instance, a friend of mine has a waterfall in his backyard, a big pond and waterfall, and he's actually gotten the mint to grow all the way across his waterfall. And so that's an excellent place to have it. It doesn't get out of control. He can keep it right there in the rocks, and it actually cleans his water. So he uses it like a filter when it comes over the waterfall, and it goes through this mint on its way down to the pond before it cycles back up. So I thought that was a pretty smart thing to do. If you have a pond, if you think about in the wild, usually you'll find mint growing along creeks, streams, things like that. So it's a marginal plant. So you can actually, if you have a pond, it's the one herb that can take wet feet. So you can actually like sit it in a pot in the edge of your pond if you like. And it's not as aggressive there.
Wonderful. Cindy, I have a couple of friends on Facebook, and I said, I'm interviewing a specialist on herbs, and they're brand new beginners. I mean, I'm an ambitious amateur, but they're real beginners. I said, do you want to ask your questions? And they said, we're too shy. We don't know what to say. But one of them said, they're growing your traditional salad garden this year, but they want to add herbs on their back patio next year. And they said, where do we start? Because they went, the seed displays at the store kind of scared her off. Where do you start if you're brand new to herbs and you want to get 3-4 good ones started next season? Where do you start?
Well, the first one that I like to do always is basil, because it's something that's easy to grow. You can, grow it on your patio. You can grow it in a pot. You can start it from seed. And it's wonderful it's a great companion with cherry tomatoes if you're just a new beginner and you want to grow some tomatoes. So the two, actually, there's a chemical reaction that happens between basil and tomatoes to help your tomatoes taste better. And also, if you're having company over and you're like me and you've been working all day and company just kind of pops in, you can always say, hey, I've got these great hors d'oeuvres on the patio, help yourself. And all you do is take a cherry tomato, and you wrap it in a leaf of basil, and there you go. Help yourself. So basil would be number one because it's a great plant for that. Basil also helps to keep flies away. So another great reason to have basil on your patio, because a lot of people like to, meet on the patio and maybe eat outside. And you do that when, like July in Canada?
Yeah, the snow is done in late June, and then we get 3 weeks of summer, and then it's winter again.
Yeah, I remember those days.
2 seasons, July and winter.
That's what I grew up with. Yes, I understand. So basil would be one. Another one that I really like is a perennial, which is chives. And there's onion chives, garlic chives. Again, very easy to start from seed in a container or in your garden, in your border. You can also plant herbs in your perennial beds. If you need to, you can mix them. They're very much at home wherever they are. As long as they don't have, as long as they're not sitting in soggy soil, they're pretty happy. So chives are nice. There's onion chives, which is the round blades. And then there's the garlic chives, which have the flat blades. But both of these are really rewarding herbs because you can just run out to the garden or on the back porch and you can just snip them and put them into whatever you're having for dinner. If you want an onion flavor or a garlic flavor, you have both of those. So that's another one that I think is really easy for people. Number 3, I would probably do lemon balm. Are you familiar with that one?
My wife loves lemon balm. You just made a new best friend.
Yeah, it's a happy plant. It's they say that it actually helps to lift the spirits just by working around it and getting that aroma. But what I love to do with it, if you're having, you want to have water instead of lemon, you just put a sprig of lemon balm in there, and it infuses nicely. If you want to make, sun tea, lemon balm is excellent for that. If you want to add some lemon to whatever you're cooking, fish or whatever it is, and you want some lemon, you can just snip it onto it. So it's, and one thing that I do with my lemon balm, I don't know if you all have traffic where you live, but here where I am, there's a lot of traffic sometimes in the Nashville area. And so a lot of times I'll just grab a handful on my way out and I'll put it on the dashboard of the car. And then as the sun hits it, it's this very calming effect. And I find it really cuts down on road rage.
Whoa, that's good stuff.
I'm telling you.
I know you can't see me, Cindy, but I take notes so my listeners who are driving don't have to take notes. So I just got about a third of a page written down in 5 minutes.
Awesome. You're good. You're good.
So the basil and cherry tomatoes
and, so yeah.
Oh, sorry, I talked on top. If you finish your thought.
No, go ahead. Basil and cherry tomatoes.
Oh, the berry and cherry, basil, they have a chemical romance?
Yeah, they really do. And they're also just a great companion together, any kind of tomato and basil, because basil helps to keep the hornworms off of the tomatoes. It confuses and befuddles hornworms. So it's another good reason. So I always intersperse my basil and tomato.
And they keep flies away.
And of course, they always go... Yeah, it keeps flies away. I plant basil around my chicken yard, and chickens can help themselves. And, because let's face it, sometimes chickens, they can get a little smelly. So, and call flies. So that helps to keep the flies down there as well.
I can testify to the chives. We get those big purple flowers on the end, and the bees just adore them.
Yes, the bees do love them. And for the garlic chives, you get that white blossom, and you get it, in the middle of summer after, well, in the South at least, by the, August into September. You're kind of, things are getting a little tired sometimes here by the middle of August. So to have these beautiful white flowers come on, everything else is looking a little tired in the herb garden, it's really nice for us. I don't know that you have that problem. Everything's probably beautiful all summer because it's so short, right?
We had that weird polar vortex this season. I don't know how your summer, our July was wet and cool. How was yours?
Yeah, same. It's been beautiful here, as a matter of fact. We've had the best summer I can remember here, just because it's been cooler, and I've rarely had to water this year, so that's always a plus in my book.
Nice. I want to hear about your book, because it's obviously a labor of love. Tell us a little bit about your book and how people can get it.
Right. The book that I've written is called The Crackpot Herb Book, and it's simple ways to incorporate herbs into everyday life. And it's available on my website, www.cindyshapton.com, and I self-publish, so that's why it's available on my website. And it's really a compilation of a lot of articles that I've done, and I do a lot of writing. I write for magazines and newspapers and such. So this is kind of a compilation of all my favorite things that I've written about. So I put them all in this book. And what I want people to know is that herbs are easy to grow. You don't have to be afraid of them. You're really going to have, herbs will give you a success in the garden. I think before anybody grows anything, they should try growing herbs, because they're very forgiving and they don't really require super great soil. They only ask for... And so I think that, you can be successful with herbs. And once people grow them, I want them to use them. And so I've tried to put together very simple ways for people to be able to do that, and every day to be able to, what to do with them, and things that you might not think about, ways that are simple.
Fantastic. It's going on my list. I love it.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Gardeners are fun. They want to know what other gardeners are doing. So this is kind of where we get to peek over your shoulder. What is your garden like this year, Cindy? What are you proud of, and has anything frustrated you?
Yes. Well, this year was my first year. We moved from a very well-established garden last year. We've decided to move back to the country, so we bought 8 acres out in the country again, and which we are loving, and we're building a little homestead. And so we moved, it will be a year in June, so that in itself was a bit of we moved here in June, and for us, gardening is well underway by June. So not knowing exactly what kind of soil we had and whatnot, we had an area that was actually a horse paddock, and my husband said, "You may have this area, and please don't come out from here." So I don't know what he's talking about. But so I had about a 40 by 40 area to start with, and so I immediately, before we even unpacked, we built square foot gardens. 4 by 4 by 4 by 8. It's 8 foot long, and I like mine about 10 inches tall. I know you said something about that as well. And so and I filled them with really great horse compost from a friend of ours, and got our garden started. So that was and it's beautiful this year. 1 year into it, it looks like I've been here for a while, but I have about 16 or 17 raised beds, and I sort of have a herb garden on one end, and then I have more of my vegetables and herbs mixed on the other end, which I call the whole thing together my kitchen garden. And over the years, I've decided that if I'm going to spend all this time gardening, I'd really like to be able to eat it or use it somehow medicinally or something to, I want it to be very useful in my life. So that's kind of where I've gotten to with my gardening. And so, the first year I wouldn't say was super successful. I did have a warm season crop. I had, things went fairly well. And then this year, of course, things are doing a lot better. This year I've had problems with my basil. I don't know if anybody else is having problems with this, but I have some kind of a wilt or something going on. And that's what I've, just kind of sad about. So I think every year I seem to have a challenge with something. And I think that's a common thing with gardeners. Every year is not going to be your best for everything. So just get over it and and be thankful for all the great things that happen in the garden.
That is such good wisdom, because so many gardeners get discouraged, especially new gardens. Like, I'm in my 3rd season, and my wife, things that upset me just doesn't even register for her. She has no emotional attachment.
Yeah. Well, after a while, I think you get to the point where you look at plants, and if they're doing well, then yay, they get to live. They get to stay there. If they're not, I can put that space to better use, maybe with something else. So I don't stress so much over a lot of things like I used to, because I find there's always something new and better or old and better that I can, grow that actually can be happy. Not everything's happy when I plant it. So, for me, it's sometimes just finding what it is that does well and be successful, because I find too that sometimes other gardeners are successful with certain things that I'm not, and vice versa. So oftentimes we share,
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is nice if you have a neighbor or another gardening friend. Some years are just better than others for certain things. Some years I get great tomatoes. Some years I don't have such a great crop, but somebody else might. So we trade and swap. And I think that's what's great about gardeners, is they're all about community.
I had a great season for my hot peppers, and my mother-in-law had a squirrel eat all of her hot peppers. I've never seen a squirrel eat a hot pepper before, and wiped her out.
That is kind of amazing that they're able to do that. You would think that it would bother them.
I swear, this big black squirrel, I saw it go in the garden, and it chomped on this habanero, I guess, and just run off. It might have been crazy squirrel. I don't know.
It's the polar vortex.
Polar vortex. I was just glancing at the clock. Our time is rapidly getting away from us, and now is the time in the show where we play everyone's favorite game called 5 Quick Questions.
All right.
This is your chance to share your wisdom and experience with rookie gardeners. Are you ready to play?
Yay. Yeah, sure.
Question number 1, Cindy. In your opinion, what do you think is the number one reason most people are afraid to start gardening?
I think, for me, I think they think it's going to be too involved. It's going to take too much time, or they're unsure of what they're doing.
And they should buy your book and go to your website and get some ideas.
Yes. And I would say to those gardeners, you have to start somewhere. Just start with something and stay small. You know, you don't have to, out of the chute, have a huge garden. You know, start with a pot and grow something in it and be successful, and then add to that every year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Question 2.
Yeah.
Question 2. You've had a lot of great teachers, a lot of experience. What's the best piece of gardening advice that you've ever received?
I actually think I've had a lot of great advice, but one of them was the ebb and flow method of gardening. And some of us like to be kind of perfectionists, and we like everything perfectly. You know, we work really hard to keep everything nice and looking good. And I have a lot of clients who love that. I do a lot of coaching, and, you know, and everybody wants to have the perfect garden. They want everything perfect all the time. And one time, somebody asked a question about, you know, for example, roses, and we have a lot of problems with beetles, the Japanese beetles. And the answer from this gardener was, you know, just let it go, ebb and flow. When they're done eating, cut it back. They have a cycle. Everything has a cycle. Cut it back, and then just move on, and try to realize that you have other things that are doing really well at the same time you have things doing badly. So don't worry about it. You're always going to have some things that are doing great, some that aren't, and don't get all shook up about it, and just kind of let your garden balance itself out and ebb and flow.
That's so wonderful. That's so Zen-like. You didn't say buy 5 kinds of poison and go to war with the beetle.
No. In fact, I mean, I think if you have a garden that's in balance, then I think that's what we strive for. And the more you mess with it, sometimes the more you mess up that balance. So, you know, have good soil. Start with good soil. If you have good soil, that's probably 80% of your success rate. A lot of times people spend all their money on plants when really they should be spending their money on soil. And making sure that their foundation is the best it can be. And then after that, you don't have a lot of problems usually.
Ooh, that's good
and
stuff.
And then just let everything be in balance, because given enough time, even with things like, you know, the beetles, pretty soon there will be predators. Like I've already seen cardinals starting to eat them. So it just takes time to get balance sometimes, but, you know, it will be all right in the end.
Beautiful. Question number 3. Internet is great for gardeners. Can you recommend 1 or 2 websites of either friends of yours who are garden bloggers, or maybe 1 or 2 resource websites that you like?
National Gardening. I like Rodale Press. A lot of times they put out a really great, you know, gardening advice. And I like it for people that are interested in herbs, and they really are really interested. Mountain Rose, they have a really great blog that they do on their website.
That's a new one on me. Good. Mountain Rose. I like that. Thank you. I love learning about new things like that.
Yeah.
Her book is top of the list. Can you recommend maybe a good gardening book or a favorite gardening book that you could suggest to a new gardener?
Yeah. There's a couple that I like, really, if you're a new gardener. One, if you're a vegetable gardener, I like the Rodale's Vegetable Garden Problem Solver by Fern Marshall. It's a little bit of an older book. You can still get it. But there's a really great advice in this book. A lot of times, you know, gardeners just want to know that, is this okay, or why for it, need to do anything? And this really kind of gives a lot of advice and kind of, and it's all organic, so it's all kind of natural kind of things that you can do to maybe fix a problem in your garden, or maybe just to satisfy your quest for help and that it's okay. So I really like that one. It just kind of gives you sound advice.
Okay.
In an easy format. And then I like Lasagna Gardening by Patricia Lanza, who's a friend of mine, and she's right here in Tennessee. And have you read that one?
No, I'm familiar with the term, though. My wife is a big believer in that.
Yeah, well, it's a great book, and I love that because it kind of throws a lot of the rules out, and it's just kind of advise easy ways to get, again, working on that soil, which is really important in my book, is having good soil. So, the whole idea of lasagna gardening is layering different things and building your soil. So I love that book. And if you're wanting to grow herbs and you want to cook with them and you want to use them maybe medicinally, there's a book by Carol Ottesen, I think I'm saying that correctly, Ottesen, and it's called The Herbal Epicure.
Wow.
And this has been one of my go-to books because it's just simple ways that, you can grow it, harvest it, cook with it, and they're all healing kind of herbs. Well, most all herbs are healing, but, she gives you some ideas on simple ways to use them, and cook with them and grow them. And it's laid out in a way that's really simple to find what you need.
Cindy, you gave some awesome resources. You think about 100 years ago, the doctor was your herbal garden on your patio 100 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, our great-grandparents, they knew what herbs they needed and how to use them. And it's amazing to me how quickly we've gotten away from it. And I love it that people want to get back to it. And here at our farm, my husband has redone a barn for me, and now I can teach workshops here at the farm. And that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching workshops on simple medicinals, and, we're doing things on canning, how to raise your food and then, preserve it. And, we're doing all kinds of workshops to teach people, again, how to do these things that our great-grandparents thought was a, natural way of life.
Oh, if you took 20 young girls at college age and say, how many of you can make soup or cook a loaf of bread? Like,
yeah.
5%, 10%, these kids can't cook. Food comes from a drive-through.
Right. And, I have nothing against fast food, Dave. I think you can plant because you can plant a package of radishes and they're ready in about 21 days. That's pretty fast.
That's brilliant.
And it comes, and you don't have to get it through your car window,
Oh.
You can just put it in a pot or in the garden. But yeah, that's so true. People really don't know. And, it's not really their fault. We just, everybody's kind of gotten away from it. But what is really encouraging to me is that I see a lot of these same young people who want to learn this again. They want to learn how to raise some chickens or milk a goat or, grow vegetables and herbs and care for their families. And I love that. I love that, they're wanting to get back to that.
That is brilliant. And you're teaching and leading the way. If somebody wants to ask you questions, they can reach you through your website?
Yes, sure. There's a contact, ask a question. Right. Yes, I'm happy to do that. Or find me on Twitter or my Facebook page. My Facebook page is The Crackpot Gardener.
That's easy to remember. Oh, I forgot to ask you question number 5. It's always a fun one.
Yay.
In your opinion, what would you think would be the number one thing that you would encourage all gardeners to try to grow next season?
All gardeners? You mean like an herb or a vegetable?
Anything goes. It's kind of a fun one. If someone wanted to try something a little crazy or fun or adventurous, what should they try to grow next season?
They should try to grow the toothache plant. That's what it's called. I promise. It's the toothache plant. And it has these beautiful, you can grow it from seed. It's really easy. You have these beautiful little button flowers. They don't really look like flowers. They're just little seed heads, but it's effervescent. And so when you add it to your food, or the leaves and the flowers, and it actually gives you a buzz in your mouth. And so have you ever tried this plant?
I've only heard about it in legend. I knew it was a real thing, though.
Yes, and a lot of are now using this because they're using it in cooking because it has this effervescent kind of a bubbly flavor. It's really more of a sensation, and so they're using it with hot food, and so you get that initial hot, and then you get this bubbling in your mouth, this effervescent. And so that's a great plant to try and grow. And it's really simple. I grew it from seed. It's really easy. So I would recommend that just for fun.
Wonderful. Well, listeners, make sure you follow Cindy on Twitter at crackpotgardener with no E's in it, and go to cindyshapton.com. Grab a couple of copies of her book on herbs, and watch for her seminars and workshops coming up if you're in the Franklin, Tennessee area. Cindy, you've been an amazing guest. We're running out of time, but I'd like to give you the last word to the listeners today. Do you have either a pearl of wisdom or maybe a note of encouragement for the gardeners on their adventures?
Well, yeah, that's what I do, Dave. No, I love to encourage gardeners. I want gardeners to get out there. And, they've come up with new research now that just having your hands in soil is like a natural antidepressant. So if you're stressed out, just get out in the garden. And, for new gardeners, again, you don't have to start big. Just start small and be successful and enjoy what you do, because if gardening isn't fun, it becomes work, and then nobody wants to do that. So keep it fun. Grow plants that you're going to use that sound interesting to use. Grow plants that maybe you can't get in your grocery store, like heirloom tomatoes or something special, so it's memorable when you grow it. And try something new every year. First of all, try to grow things that you like already, so you're going to eat them and use them. And then try something new every year, just for fun.
Dynamite. Cindy, you've been a brilliant guest. Thanks for being on the show.